This episode of Sideline Warning is brought to you by Roosport, makers of the original magnetic running pouch. Whether you're biking, running, hiking, or even traveling, the Roosport clips to your waistband with magnets for an easy, convenient way to carry what you need without the bulk of belts or bags. Visit theroosport.com and take a look at their products, sizes, and colors and find the Roosport pouch that's right for you. That's theroosport.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sideline Warning, the show where sports takes are sure to go way too far into the field. Here to recap this week's biggest and best sports stories are your hosts, Dave Adams, Ben Foster, and Adam Russell.
And everybody, welcome into Sideline Warning, episode 32. Once again, you have the golden voice of the Southeast. Now we'll go with the golden voice of the South. Dave Adams here with you. And as always, wow, y'all are silent. Y'all not going to talk out of turn again this week. I'm going to bring in my co-host all the way from Birmingham, Alabama, one Mr. Benjamin Foster. Ben, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, Dave. Just waiting my opportunity to be brought into the show before I speak because, that's what I do. I'm a rule follower and
Ben,
I just...
Ben, no.
No,
Ben.
Dave? No?
No. So, okay, wow, also following the rules all the way from the House of Mouse, Orlando, Florida, St. Cloud, Florida, Kissimmee. What am I missing, Adam? Adam Russell.
You're missing the golden voice of Florida. I actually earned that title last week, according to you yourself. So let's hear it.
Okay, the golden voice of Florida. So
Why,
Adam
thank
Russell.
you, sir.
Okay. Well, this week is a special week for me, and I think it's obvious that everyone knows that I got into podcasting because of one guy. I asked some help from a guy who I've started following, and my wife actually knows his wife really well. One Mr. Logan Seculo. Logan, what's going on, buddy?
Hey guys, I'm happy to hear this is Alabama and Florida, a place I've spent a lot of time, so it's very good. So I'm excited. I did think you first said I'm the golden boy of Alabama, and I was like, that's a bit strange. I think voice, okay, but the golden boy, I was like, I think of Oscar De La Hoya. Like I don't really picture you, Dave, but it's fine. But I'm happy to be here and to join Sideline Warning, and I don't know, talk about whatever you guys want.
Well, so first off, we need to talk about why you're here.
Yeah.
You and I share
on the show now, so it's I'm on Sideline Warning. We had to represent the full Southeast. We got Florida covered. We got Alabama covered, and I'll rep Tennessee here. Right now I'm in Nashville, the outside of Nashville, Tennessee. If I threw a rock right there, I'd be in Nashville, Tennessee. Yeah. But yeah, I am here. I'm here to talk about a new TV show that I directed.
So you and I share a love for wrestling. And I do have two other co-hosts on here who don't follow wrestling. In fact, you and I will talk about something here at the very end of when we talk about your TV show. But first off, tell us a little bit about yourself, Logan. You have a wrestling show. How did you get your love for wrestling? Just talk about your past in the quote unquote sport.
Yeah. And I want to make sure we're professional wrestling fans. I'm not necessarily. I like amateur wrestling just fine, but I'm not like checking out high schools and being like, got to go see what's going on down there over in in downtown Nashville. That's not what I'm talking about.
So we're not talking Greco-Roman? We're not doing Greco-Roman today?
We're not talking yet. No, a freestyle. I don't watch that much of it. Occasionally during the Olympics, I'll turn on wrestling, but we're talking about the big spectacle of professional wrestling. I grew up in Atlanta, or outside of Atlanta, and wrestling was just part of the culture. My dad was a fan. My mom, not necessarily a fan, but was aware of it. One of her, how do you say this? One of her grandmother's husbands at one point was a pro wrestler, and my grandparents used to go to pro wrestling shows on their dates. And growing up in Georgia, it was just part of culture. So, whether it was like everyone in the 80s, I had the action figures of Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior. But, my dad would do like a Dusty Rhodes impersonation. I don't even know who that is. And all of a sudden, the mid 90s, late 90s hit, 1997 or so, 96, 97, around when the NWO and everything started breaking. And if you were a kid in Georgia in 1996, a boy specifically outside Atlanta, you were watching, Monday Nitro, and that's became my addiction and my love from when I was a kid. And it just kept growing until, like a lot of people, you fell off, and I fell off from the time Nitro ended. I was diehard WCW till the end, which if you guys aren't familiar with what that is, there's kind of two major wrestling promotions. There's WCW and at the time the WWF, now the WWE. And WCW started as Georgia Championship Wrestling and the NWA, and it grew into what was this big television show that Hulk Hogan was on, the Macho Man Randy Savage, and eventually all of these young guys that I started to love, whether it was the hard-hitting Goldberg type guys or whether it was Chris Jericho and the Luchas and stuff that I was really never exposed to before, I really didn't know, and I just loved this show. And, you know, if you go through the WWE Network now, you can find way too many shots of me, like with a sign, little fat kid, like flapping his arms, you know. And there's so much of that it's almost like, it's hard because I'm like, oh, I know, I was there. I'm like, oh yeah, there you are. So if you guys can find it, go look at some of the old Nitros in Atlanta. And, man, I just really loved the whole spectacle of it. I was a sports fan, but I wasn't as hardcore of a sports fan at the time. And I was more of the comic book Star Wars geek. And I think that kind of connected with me on a different level because of how fantastic and insane this was. And everyone's aware of the sort of, the realities of pro wrestling and that a lot of it is a show. And I was a big fan up until really the end of WCW in 2001. I even had a pro wrestling themed bar mitzvah, which is I have my bar mitzvah like photo album signed by Goldberg. Like I was like,
That's cool.
Was like my brother had like tennis and I had pro wrestling, and and it was great. It was just part of my life. And then in about 2001, 2002. I tried to go with the WCW, moved to the WWE. They sold. This company from Turner sold to the WWE. And I just didn't follow it at that point. I fell out of it. And when they'd come to town, I'd go. You know, if Raw or SmackDown came, I would be there because at the time it was like a lot of the people that I grew up watching. We fast forward years later, and around 2009, my wife actually, because she knew that I loved wrestling as a kid, and she knew that I at least enjoyed watching it here and there, sent me and my buddy Will, who you've heard on other podcasts if you listen to some of the stuff I've done, who's been my best friend since we were little kids, to WrestleMania in Phoenix. And we were like sort of like lukewarm fans right then, but we're like, oh yeah, we're going to make this a guys weekend. We're going to go. And from then, so it's been the last decade almost, I just fell right back in love with it. And my history between those times is I was a filmmaker. I've made television shows, and visual media is just my love and my passion. So I've made documentaries and feature films and a lot. And I was in film school at the time when WCW ended. And now that's where they have NXT every week at Full Sail University, where I went. And that's kind of fun because I remember as a kid at college there, they felt like, what's your dream job? And I remember writing down that I wanted to work in professional wrestling. And they laughed me like out of the room. And now it's like the home of professional wrestling. Every time they call me to like do some sort of like, we're going to do a story on your new project, I'm like, I'm going to rub this part in. And y'all laughed at me. And then now like pretty much like you can buy a WWE video game and they're like, from Full Sail University. And I just got right back into the WWE. And then again, I had no real interest in necessarily making a wrestling TV show. Not that I didn't have an interest. It was always a hope and a dream. But that really wasn't where my career was going. I was making documentaries and dramas, and it really wasn't heading towards pro wrestling. But it was always in the back of my head, something to be fun. And whenever like a local indie would need a video crew, a lot of times I'd volunteer me and my buddies, and we'd go shoot it just because it was fun. And it was a good thing to keep everyone on their toes to learn how to shoot kind of sports. And one thing kind of led to another, and I came up with an idea and I really thought was fun. And I worked with my buddy Dylan Spears, who does a lot of the music for us, and he's also a great producer. And we came up with this idea, what has become this new pro wrestling television show. And now I've been like going on and on, so I don't want to like tell. I'm like going way forward in the story, but like I've just loved wrestling, and I ended up being, I'm a huge fan of most major sports, and I think that there's a little bit of that missing in the world of pro wrestling. And I think our show that we're developing right now, we're not developing, it's being released, but we're still actively like working on the next season and things, brings a little bit more of that. So if you're a sports fan, and maybe you don't know about pro wrestling, maybe this could be a good a good gateway for you, because we're showing some pretty extreme athleticism, and I think that's really what changed a lot from when I was a kid to now. Is I was opened up years of indie wrestling that is just a completely different. It's just not even the same stuff I grew up with watching at all. And I think it's something that if anyone watches, you can at least be impressed by it. And I kind of just developed an idea, but I'm going to stop here because I keep going, because this is what happens in every interview I do. You give me one question, I talk for an hour.
Hey, it's okay.
I was a wrestling fan as a kid. I loved it. Yay. That's what I did. So, yeah, that's it.
So tell me a little bit. So let's go ahead and plug it. The show is Dojo Pro. Yeah. And you can find it on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, it's available on Amazon Prime. If you are Amazon Prime, it's called Prime Video. But if you are I have to get it. I used to say Amazon Prime Video. If you're a Prime subscriber, the show is absolutely free to you. So if you've already paid for the subscription to Amazon Prime, which like half the country is or more, the show is available. So you can go watch the whole season. It's 12 episodes. It's called Dojo Pro. It's real easy to spell, real easy to roll off your tongue and to remember. And if you can't, go to dojopro.co, because that's also fun to say. And that has all our information on where to watch it, who's on the show. And essentially, we mixed a lot of different things. We mixed pro wrestling, mixed martial arts, and just martial arts in general. And also some entertainment aspects from video games and the way that it's kind of formatted. It has a Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat kind of vibe, especially in the way the system's done, which is essentially 12 wrestlers are ranked, and they have a not necessarily a traditional tournament, but it's a ladder. So they're ranked from 1 to 12, and they wrestle their way up. And one person loses, the next person takes over and works their way up, much like Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter, where you'd be that character, you'd lose, and then the person who beat you would then take over. So it has that element to it. It has a bit of an anime element to it, but it really comes down to, that's just style. It really comes down to showcasing really great young wrestling talent and a couple guys you may be familiar with, to really give them a different outlet. I think there's a lot of really good independent wrestling that exists online. You can find a lot of it, but a lot of it is under the reason kind of went to Amazon Prime, one of these outlets, is because that's somewhere where actually people can be discovered. Because if it's on Powerbomb TV or High Spots or even the WWE Network, which I'm a subscriber and fan of all of those, you have no odds of hitting an outside audience. Like you're going to only hit your hardcore wrestling fans, which is great. And trust me, I want them and I need them, and I'm one of them. But I would love to give these guys an opportunity. And one of those opportunities is we've partnered with Ring of Honor Wrestling, which is, definitely, I would say it's, when it comes to their saturation in media and what they're doing, they're number 2 probably in the United States. It's my favorite, wrestling in the United States is Ring of Honor when it comes to some of the talent they have there. And through an awesome meeting that we had a year ago in Atlanta at Center Stage, which we walked into pitching the show, but in a different thing, they offered us an option of our winner to go on and face their television champion and get a TV title shot. And regardless of what people want to say, because I know a lot of people, and you guys, even the 2 other guys other than Dave, are not wrestling fans. You're like, well, what do you mean it's a TV title? I mean, who cares? It's not. No, because it's really an opportunity for these guys to be shown on a much bigger scale than really any other independent wrestling company could do. So that was huge for us, and that kind of lit the fire of I thought we had something, and we had a good presentation, and we presented it, and I felt very good in my presentation. But when they offered something like that, I couldn't help but jump for joy and realize we had what I think is something very cool. It's also a show. I wanted to make a show that was showcasing these amazing independent wrestlers. And if you're familiar with wrestlers, there's wrestlers like Joey Janela and Jeff Cobb, who was an Olympian, James Storm, but even these guys who I would say like a Janela or a Wheeler Yuta or Shane Strickland, they're on a lot of shows right now, but they're not necessarily on shows that you want to sit down and watch with your kids. And my son, I have a 5-year-old son who's a hardcore wrestling fan, even more so than I certainly was at his age. And I wanted to make something that could show off these characters and these really unique athletes to an audience that you could sit down. Like there's very few Joey Janela shows that are appropriate to watch for the whole family. He's a guy who's known for like jumping off of roofs and getting hit with light bulbs and doing crazy death matches. Which, if you want to have some fun, start googling death matches. But I knew that there was something there with these guys, and I wanted to create a show that you could also sit down and watch with your kids. So there's, pretty much, other than it being a very intense athletic competition, and I'd say that'd be my only hesitation of some kids watching. It's brutal. There's not blood, and it's not like it's over the top like that, but it feels real. But there's not really any language in it. There's nothing really that you couldn't sit down as a family and enjoy. So it's not necessarily it's not made for kids. But there's enough there that I think if you're looking for something to hook your kids, it's very easy to understand too. To me, one of the big things, and you wouldn't be able to tell by the way I do these questions and answer them for 10 minutes, is as a young dad, pro wrestling is a major commitment. WWE, which again I love, and I would never, I'm not somebody pressuring them, says, if you want to follow our main storylines, you're minimum giving us 5 hours a week. You're probably giving us 6 hours a week, plus pay-per-views and the main events. So you're talking about sometimes a commitment of 6 to 12 hours, 6 to 10, 12 hours a week. And as a dad of a 5-year-old and twin girls, like I don't have the time. So we created a show that you could sit down, you could binge watch it or watch it on your lunch break, wherever you are on any device. If you have an Amazon Prime account, you can watch it free. If you don't, you can rent or buy it for very low cost and really enjoy the series. Each episode is focused on one match, and it leads you to the next match. It's very easy to understand. There may be a bunch of characters, but it's one storyline, and it's who's going to make it to the Dojo Pro Black Belt, which is our main championship. And creating a concept that was easily digestible, easy to understand, and through some really cool circumstances, I ended up working with people I watched as a kid, and people who I really admired over the years, and people that I admire now, who I realize are so open to there being other outlets for pro wrestling, that it's been an absolute blast. It's been a full year of work. I realized that the day I pushed publish on Amazon, I got an email alert that the domain was coming up for expiration like that day. So it had been a full year since we came up with the name to now the product's being released. That's a pretty fast turnaround for TV. But for me, I'm like one of those guys who's like, we got 2 months to figure this out, and I'm moving on. A full year to produce a show isn't nothing, but we had to learn a lot to really successfully do this. Even like, where do I buy a ring? Those are things you don't think about.
I'll tell you, Logan, one of the funniest stories I've ever heard you tell is your experience with buying a ring.
I'll tell that story.
In fact, we're going to keep you around. We'll let you do that as your sideline warning.
Okay. All right. Unless y'all anger me about something else, then I will. I'll tell that story if. Yeah.
So
sure, sounds good.
So Logan, I was going to ask you to pitch your show to 2 non-wrestling fans, but I think you've done a great job of that.
You guys better watch it. I mean, come on now.
You've made the case. You've made the case.
Yeah.
I hope so. To me, this show is, it's bread and butter is going to be hardcore wrestling fans. I know that just because the name of the show and the storyline, but giving you guys hopefully the outlet to watch. The whole season, it's 12 episodes, but it's about a 5-hour total commitment. 5-6 hours, something like that. And there's fun storyline elements. And like I said, you're seeing incredible athletes. Even if it's a story and it's fun, it's still, Dave was there. I don't think that's a secret. Dave is there in the front row for a lot of, you'll see him screaming his face off. So even if you're listening to the show and you just want to,
okay,
you can definitely
you just
hear
gave
Dave.
me a reason. You just gave me a reason to not watch now. So you may need to.
Dave is now doing it. They closed captioned some of his like heckles.
Oh, did they really?
Yes, I love it. I was like, oh, you're better than that. There's a lot of those that come up at the bottom of the screen.
Dave yells that at us a lot too.
I know.
It's true.
it's
wow. Oh.
The captions. There's a couple Easter eggs that aren't necessarily 100% of what's being said, but it's the way the people who captioned it did it, because they weren't clearly not wrestling fans, and some of them are hilarious, so I left them in. It's just like, I hope people actually get to this, because there's a couple I had to change because it's like, I don't know, this seems offensive. And then a couple I left in because they're hilarious.
Okay, I have to ask this, and so note, Logan, if you want me to take this out, we'll edit this out.
Okay.
But I have to ask you this because I was at a live show where Joey Janela basically took the mic from the ring announcer and just went off on his next opponent. Please tell me that did not make it on the cutting room floor and that stayed in the show itself.
It's for the most part in there. There may be a little bit trimmed for time, but it was a Joey Janela. If you guys are not familiar with him, just Google Joey Janela when you're not like at work and watch. I mean, he's amazing. And working with him, he's a wrestler. He's about my age. I think he's in his early 30s. And we worked with 15 or so different guys over the course of the taping, and producers and all the different types of people. But working with Joey for just a couple days, he is on a different level than maybe anyone I've ever worked with in a good way. Like I could give him, when we were doing interviews and things, we'd be like, oh, here's maybe where things are going. And he would take it and run with it and come up with stuff that is just brilliant. And he cuts an epic promo. I can't tell you what the end of the episode is because it would spoil something else probably, but it is leading towards a pretty big match. And it is it's one of the best moments of the show. I think the only thing we had to cut out was maybe a couple things. So he was actually very good at it. That maybe I've been like, that may have had to give us like a higher rating if we had left in that language wise or something. But overall, he was very professional and just a dude who's operating on a different level, but in a way that I hope to be able to work with again because I could not express how much I loved working with Joey Janela. There was one promo where I think he didn't. It's one of those things where I was never sure, like, am I actually making him mad or not? Then clearly I wasn't. But there's one promo that is not on the air, which is he grabbed the mic when the show was done and went on another crazy rant. Now we have it, but it's like all the lights are off. I can't really use it. Just because he was like mad that I think I said to the crowd, I was like, all right, that was the end. And maybe he's not necessarily the best good guy. Maybe he's a bad guy. Maybe he's a guy. I'm not going to say he's a bad boy.
He's a heel.
He's pretty much a heel in this, but the crowd loves him and I love him. So I said and it's more the producer in me that has a hard time sometimes not breaking like some of the story elements. So I was like, that's a wrap on Joey Janela. Thank you. And then I don't think he liked that. So then he came back out and got a crazy promo on the audience, was insulting everyone. But, part of that is, again, like we shot the show in a small sound stage. There's probably, it's a small crowd, 30, 50, 75 people, something like that at most. And some of that does evoke the emotions of sort of the old wrestling that my parents grew up on. But also I think it's just different. I think a lot of shows you go and you see a giant arena filled with 30,000 people, and that's cool. And we decided let's make one of the most exclusive, shows in town where if you can't get in, we didn't even announce what the show is. You had to just hopefully show up to something you didn't even know what it was. And, somehow it did get spoiled on the internet, though I'm sure by the time this airs, it will already have been. But we were able to really kind of keep a lid on all of this that we're doing and tell a fun story.
Well, I might have had a little insider trading and knew which day to go because, you had a wrestler that I had followed for most of his career. So I was excited to see James Storm up close. So.
Cowboy. Yeah, exactly. And I think he is someone who will bring a different audience as well. I think all these guys bring in different audiences. And, I saw Storm last week. He seems excited to see it. Hopefully he likes the show when it's done.
Hey, one last thing before we go to our break to hear from our sponsor, Roosport. I do want to ask, so Ben, Adam, and I have had a discussion for probably the last 6 weeks on this show, ever since WrestleMania. I am of the opinion that wrestling is a sport, and Ben and Adam are of the opinion that it is not.
Often debated, yes.
Yes. Can you help tell them that wrestling is a sport?
I can, and here's why. I actually am one of the people who, I think Kurt Angle tried to do it a few years back, that thinks pro wrestling should be an Olympic sport. And I know you're like, wait a second, Logan, that's crazy. You're an insane person. But I really do. I believe that a pair of wrestlers can go out and put on an amazing show. And Yes, at the end of the day, it's a show, but it's an athletic display. And if figure skating is a sport, an Olympic sport, and that's nothing against figure skating, but what's the difference? What's the difference between pairs figure skating and professional wrestling? They're both putting on incredible athletic shows, but still just a show. They're not like the stakes are in points. So I think you could develop a point system. You could come up with ways to showcase that, yes, this is it. Yes, pro wrestling, if you look at it in the box, sure, you can say that's not a sport because you can be like, all right, it's a show. I know it is. But if you take the actual, let's say the art form, which is what I'd also say for figure skating or couples figure skating specifically, and if you could go out there and be like, all right, here are two guys representing America, and they're going to go put on the best show possible. And the main thing is going to be, it's going to end in a 3 count, and the rest is up to those guys to work it out. And they're working as a team, even if they're opposed to each other in the show. And that's how has been my defense of is pro wrestling a sport, because I've fallen on that mat. I know how it feels. It's not good. And I have seen some of the stuff these guys can do, especially the younger guys that are just coming up. And if you're watching NXT or you're watching Ring of Honor, or you're watching what's going on in New Japan, and even WWE, when you have your Finn Balor's and your AJ Styles, you can't tell me that like you could go do that. Yes, you could go win a match because I say you do, but you can't go and do what they do. There's a reason they operate at a different level. So that would be my defense. My defense is the figure skating defense.
Okay. Ben, Adam,
I'm not as bothered by the explanation as I am by the satisfied look on your face, Dave. Just the overall.
If only Dave could make an argument as well as Logan makes an argument, we might not even be having this debate. But Logan, I gotta ask, if you do get your dream and professional wrestling is an Olympic sport, who do you want to represent the USA?
Ooh, that is
don't say who I think you're going to say. Bill Goldberg's too old.
What I want to do, I want to get in the time machine. I'm going to get in the time machine. I'm going to go get Hacksaw Jim Duggan, because nobody waves the American flag better than Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
I love Hacksaw. He at least should be the coach. Oh man, right now, that'd be hard to say, because I'm like thinking of people against each other. Like you have people who I love, like the Young Bucks, or you have guys that are. I mean, you have AJ and Finn Balor in the WWE, and you have
Vince Irish.
Ben's Irish. That's right. Yeah, never mind. I'm just thinking of like really athletic people. Yeah, he's probably maybe an American citizen now. I don't know. There's some weird Jeff Cobb, who's on our show, wrestled for Guam. I'm not, I think it's a little bit. There's some interesting things you work around the Olympics, but I would have to really think about that, because it would depend on who could put together an incredible show. Now, Canada obviously would be Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho, because they just had, it was one of the best matches of all time. So we'll put that on Canada. Team Canada will be tough to beat. And maybe we'll put it on the Bucks, just because I'd like to see what they can do against each other, though I don't want them ever to break up.
No. Please don't let the Bucks break up. Although watching being the elite, it might happen, I'm afraid.
Yeah. It would be, I think, that'd be a bad business decision.
Yeah, it would.
Not yet.
So I can sit here and talk wrestling all night, but we do
That's
have
not why people listen.
Right.
Well, I have to say, I'm sorry, Dave. I have to say, after Googling Joey Janela, and he is on a roof with another grown man. Below them is a table with fire underneath it in the back of a flatbed truck.
Yeah, and
I haven't watched the video. Okay. One of them is going to end up on that fire,
or maybe both of them.
It sounds like the videos I've seen of the Buffalo Bills fans.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's wild. The bottom of that truck is filled with fluorescent light bulbs and barbed wire. Legit, not a fake. And there's no reason. You hear Joey tells his story. You can feel free to watch the end of that tape. And we talk about it on the show. He almost lost his thumb in that. Like it came mostly detached. Joey's wild, but he's I think maybe hopefully our show can show a different side of him.
I was going to say, your explanation of why it's a sport is fantastic. Dave's passion for it is obvious. I'm willing to accept the fact that it's a sport, so I don't ever have to even run into the possibility that I have to explain to that guy why I don't think it's a sport.
So I do have to ask Logan before we go to the break, and after the break we will talk about sports. Logan will talk about his time at the national championship game, because he is a Georgia fan. But I do want to ask you. We talk about Joey Janela and his hardcore ability right there about that going into the truck. Joey Janela versus Mick Foley in a hardcore match. who wins?
Oh, well, I mean, now Joey Janela. I've spent some time with Mick, and he's the sweetest guy maybe I've ever talked to. But I mean, he's had to have like hip replacements and stuff. I think that Joey
in their prime, if they're both in their prime,
machine,
if they're both in their prime, yeah, time machine.
Because he's on my TV show, I'm saying Joey Janela. And because I love him, but yeah, I mean, I love Mick Foley too. I was a WCW kid though, so I liked his time as Cactus Jack and all that in WCW. But the Mankind deal that's when I was kind of I had already picked my allegiance, and my allegiance was with the NWO.
Logan, you've got me convinced that if you had not said Joey and had said Mick Foley, Joey would have somehow kicked in the door at your house and taken the mic from you and started.
I'm just kidding. There are some times when I've watched the show because some of the bad guys are like bad guys, and Dave was there. Like they get heckled out of the building. There are times when I watch this and be like, God, I hope that they like this because I think they know where I live.
Yeah, I will say it was fun to be there, and it was fun to be right around some of these wrestlers because I grew up kind of like Logan did. I watched these wrestlers, and they were larger than life characters, and being what, Logan, I was 5 feet from James Storm.
Yeah,
it's just cool to see that, and what Logan brought into that. I think that if you're kind of a small wrestling fan, this will bring you into liking wrestling a little bit more. And I'll say this too. I was a big WWE fan, but when I started hanging out with Logan, I met Logan and talked with Dylan. I started watching the independents a little bit better. And I would challenge anybody who just watches WWE, watch Ring of Honor, watch New Japan.
Yeah.
WWE is not where it's at anymore.
I'm not going to go as far as that, but I will say that it's a different show.
It is.
WWE beats everybody in production. But other than that, I think you're right. If you're a casual fan, your mind will be blown by what's going on the independents for sure.
Watch the Young Bucks. Watch Cody. Don't call him Rhodes. Cody now.
Just Cody.
Yeah. Watch Kenny Omega. And the Golden Lovers. Anything New Japan.
We're losing your co-host. I can see it
in
their eyes. So you just said Golden Lovers, and they're like, oh, I'm out.
Done.
Out. My team is not the Golden Lovers.
All right, guys. We'll tell you what. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to let you listen to our commercial about the Rue Sport. We believe it's a great product, and we'll see you here on the other side, here on Sideline Morning.
Hey everybody, while we've got a quick second, I want to tell you again about our sponsor, Rue Sport, at theruesport.com, and the running pouches they make that clip to your waistband with magnets. I know we've talked in the past about our experience with the Dark Side Half Marathon. I'm actually training for my second half marathon with my new Rue Sport that I recently got, and I got to say, still love it. I'm able to really leave the house with just a pair of shoes, a Rue Sport, whatever I need to fit inside at my house, key my phone, and just go. I don't have to worry about taking a belt. I don't have to worry about anything being uncomfortable when I run. It holds what I need. It gets the job done, and it does it in a really comfortable way, which is not something you can say about a lot of running gear out there. And Dave, I know you recently got one. I don't know if you have any experiences you want to share.
Actually, I have been training with it since I got it a couple weeks ago. Just last weekend, I went on a good long run. I went in it, threw some gels in it, threw my phone in it. Didn't even feel the pouch. The only reason I knew it was there is because I felt my phone on my hip. Didn't move. The magnets made it stay right there on my belt loop. And honestly, it's the best thing I've ever had because, like I said a couple weeks ago, when I first started running at them, you told me to go get one of those belts that have the water bottles and the little fanny pack looking thing up front. And it just rode up and down when I started running. I didn't like it. It didn't feel comfortable. But this Rue Sport pouch, it really is. It's the best thing you could take when you're running.
Yeah, and we're about to actually go out to some theme parks coming up in the next week or two, and so I'm going to take it out for a spin in a theme park, something completely different than running. So we'll let you guys know how that goes after we have that experience. So visit theruesport.com and take a look at their products. They've got multiple colors, multiple sizes to fit all kinds of phones, and find the one that's right for you, and that's theruesport.com. Go visit their website, take a look at their product.
And welcome back to Sideline Morning. Hope you guys are as well rested as the four of us are. As you've listened to the first half of the show, you know Logan Segulo is with us. I don't know what that's.
I think because it was like the four of us. Like, oh, I'm one of the team.
You're one of the team this week, Logan. In fact, we're going to let you stick around and do a sideline warning if you don't mind.
Awesome. I'm happy to actually talk about sports, but we'll see where this ends up.
Okay, so Adam, Ben, this is going to be more of your cup of tea. We're going to talk sports now.
Yes.
We don't have to talk wrestling.
Sports.
We talked about Logan being a big Georgia fan, and back in January, I had asked Logan because I knew he was going to the national championship game. I asked Logan if he wanted to come on and talk about his time at the game. But what was it you said, Logan?
That's right. I forgot about that till right now. I don't know. I think I was like too emotionally scarred by the whole experience. It was man. Let's bring up some bad memories. Let's do it.
Well, 6 months have passed. I think you should be okay by now.
I've recovered. Yeah.
I would hope. So it's been 37 years since Georgia had played in the national championship game.
Yeah, my entire life, Georgia Bulldogs had never gone to the national championship, and I've been a fan. The same grandfather that used to take my grandmother to dates at professional wrestling was a hardcore Georgia Bulldog fan. So I didn't go there. I was always a fan, and in my teens got really into it. I've been a fan, and I sort of made a pact with myself. If it ever happened, if we were ever to go, I was going to go. And with it being in Atlanta, only a few hours down the road where I grew up, I was like, all right, this is the dream come true. New stadium, this is going to be awesome. And it was. Like, I will say this, like I don't regret going at all. It was an incredible experience. I've been blessed to be able to go to a bunch of kind of championship game type things, whether it's in football, whether it's the SEC championship, or whether it's I've been to a Super Bowl, and when I was a kid when the Falcons went, and I've gone to World Cups, and I've seen all of this, but none that I really cared as much about as going to see the Georgia Bulldogs play in the national championship. So it was a huge deal. Me and my dad went and scalped tickets for stupid, price probably. It was, and ended up staying right there, like the Omni Hotel, and it was an amazing experience, but it was pretty heartbreaking for me. I am not an Alabama hater as much as I want to be right now. My wife, obviously, said, is from Alabama. I've cheered for Alabama. I spent a lot of time, weirdly, I know you guys in Kissimmee, I spent a lot of time at the Capital One Bowl, and I feel like it was quite a few years there that Alabama would go. So I'd go to the Capital One Bowl, and I'd cheer for Alabama. I got no problem. I love the tradition. It's part of the reason I love wrestling is I also love the tradition of sport. I love the history of it, and I love the history of the SEC, and I like that Alabama doesn't change their uniforms, but for some reason we do. I wish that's what I kind of wish the respect level was, but it's different because it never won. So I think that's part of the reason why Georgia's always trying to kind of reinvent itself. Is we don't have that legacy except for Herschel Walker, which was before I was born, and who I heard about my whole life as this guy you worshipped, and it was a great experience. Other than when it came down to it, and it was the kick to win the game, and Georgia blocked the kick. I've never been hugged by a man that I do not know so tightly in my life, and I was part of it. I full on embraced him, and of course, like 2 minutes later, he was throwing stuff onto the field. But for those 2 minutes when Georgia had screwed everything up, and I just had that gut feeling that was going to happen. It was like too good of a first half. And Alabama is too good at figuring this stuff out. And I knew that. That in my head, I was like, we're going to lose. This is what's going to happen. In that fleeting moment, though, I'm like, this isn't going to happen. We're going to win. And then to lose and then get stuck in what I cannot tell you is the worst crowd situation I've ever been in. And I've been to 3 WrestleManias and all of these other things where there's 100,000 people there, and somehow Mercedes-Benz Stadium, brand new stadium, couldn't figure out how to get people out. It was a nightmare. I was like touching people. It was you could not move. And when it's 100,000 people and half of them or more are just completely defeated morally and personally, and it was tough, but it was great. I mean, I obviously hope that this happens again, and that we get to go again. And
we do too. We hope it happens again.
Yeah, I would love to go. I don't know if I would. I think where is it going to be? The national championship this year? Is it next year? California?
It's going to be Santa Clara, right outside San Francisco, the Levi's Stadium where the 49ers play.
Right. That's tempting because I do love that area of the country, but there's part of me that's like, I kind of checked that box of spending an absorbent amount of money to go to the national championship and lost. Like, I know how that feels, and I don't know if you could guarantee me we're going to win, like if it was pro wrestling where I don't get this way, then it would have it would have been different. And I think that's honestly, like, when I thought about when I was a kid, like, part of the reason I love pro wrestling is I could always justify in my head, like, yes, my favorite wrestler lost, but he went out there knowing that was going to happen. And so you shouldn't be that upset. Get yourself together, man. I can't do that with college football. Like, I can't. Like, I mean, I don't know any of these people playing. I didn't go to the school. You know, I could probably say I've been to Athens all of, maybe, let's say collectively a month in my life, But, when you add up just the amount of games and weekends that we're hanging out there, I mean, it's not like I lived there. But it's just such ingrained in me that I'm just a gigantic fan, and it was like I said, it was a great experience, and one that I hope to get to enjoy again. Though that flight, to drive 4 hours wasn't too bad, but a flight to California, I don't know if I'm up for that.
Yeah. Now, Ben, did you go? I can't remember if you went to the game.
Yeah, I was there.
Okay, so Ben,
he waited for the trophy, like, and all of that. We were already gone. That's all I got stuck.
Yeah. So I did hang around for a minute, and I'm not trying to rub this in, Logan, but one of the most amazing things I've been fortunate to be there for all of the Saban championship games. Yeah. And something I had not seen at any of the other games was there were several Georgia fans in my section that left their hats in the stands because as soon as the game was over, they threw their hat, and there were like piles of nachos and like hats on the ground. And I've never seen in no other game have I seen that where people were leaving their own personal like clothing, their merchandise. Where they literally like threw their hat on the ground and walked out. It was painful for Georgia fans, and so I'm sorry for your pain. I am happy for the outcome, though.
Of course, yeah, and the electricity that was happening in that stadium, it's hard to explain. I know that Dave, we've had talks about soccer a lot and how you can't really get into it, but to me, like, that's the same. That was the emotion of going to the World Cup or something like that means so much to so many people. That to feel that, pretty much at home was pretty great. And not that I've been to plenty of Georgia rivalry games, but nothing compares to it. Like, I haven't been to an Iron Bowl, and I haven't been to those things. And I feel like that's a bit of that emotion that maybe in Georgia I had not felt in a long time, because there were so many years there where, I mean, Georgia Tech occasionally would pull off a win, but like, who really cares? The Auburn games were always fun until they weren't fun, but they were fun for a lot of those years. Like, they were rivalry, but it wasn't this like pure energy. But I did feel that at the national championship, where it just, you could feel it in the whole crowd was just. It's like The Rock just came out.
Bring it back to wrestling.
Exactly. And I left, and I met your neighbor, Conrad Thompson, on the way out. He's a big Alabama fan. And I ran into him on the way out. And I was like, you know what? At least I still have wrestling. So I got to.
If you don't know, Conrad Thompson, he has 3 wrestling podcasts.
Yeah.
1 about WWE and 2 about WCW.
Yeah. And I listen to religiously one of them, and from time to time the others. And he's a big Alabama fan, and he lives right down the road. But I met him and saw a bunch of random people. That was cool. It was a great experience. Like, I got no complaints other than we lost, and you can't really control that. It was awesome. I'm excited that college football is weirdly around the corner. It doesn't feel like it should be, but this is July pretty much now. That means we're 8 weeks, 12, 10 like that, 10 weeks out.
We're getting close.
That's not far at all.
Well, speaking of things being right around the corner, let's pick the SEC East. And Logan, we want you to chime in and tell us where you think teams are going to be. So I've got the SEC standings going here, but I guess we'll just kind of go around and kind of fill it in. We'll work our way from the bottom to the top. Who do you think's going to finish last? So that's the first question. Who's going to be 7th in the SEC East? Who do you guys have?
Let's let Logan start it off.
Oh, thanks.
Dave, don't put the guy on the spot.
Tennessee will finish last.
Oh, coming out with a hot take already.
They were 0-8 last year, so.
Yeah, I mean, is it really that much of a hot take? I'm thinking Tennessee. I mean, it was between, obviously, like, to me, like a couple teams, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Tennessee at the bottom.
All right. Well, I'll go next. I'm going to go with their neighbor, kind of to the west. I'm going to go Vanderbilt. I think Vandy lost a little bit of luster. They lost their big linebacker. I'm going to go Vandy finishing last.
Yeah, I agree, Dave. I'd pick Vanderbilt too. As much as I would love to see Tennessee at the bottom again, I think it's going to be Vandy.
It's wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Logan, I'm not going to leave you on an island. I'm with you. Tennessee is going to finish last in the SEC East.
Wow.
So I definitely see it your way. It is going to take them a long time to rebuild, and so they're not going to have it this year. So Tennessee in the number 7 spot. All right, it's the number 6 spot. Who do you have here? This may be sort of a flip flop between what everybody's thinking.
Yeah. I'll say Vanderbilt for that one. And if you want to go, by the way, if you're a fan of college football and your team is playing Vanderbilt, go, because it's the most fun you're going to have at a college football game, because nobody is there, and no one is there for Vanderbilt. Like I go to the Georgia games every other year when they're here, and it's great because it's like seeing a private show for Georgia. Like there's like 20,000 people there, and it's like 80% always are like Georgia fans. There's a tiny little, other than like the one year where Vanderbilt had their moment, like it's crazy. And so I encourage you to go see Vanderbilt play. I love them. They're around the corner. I would love to see them do something crazy great. But I'm going Vanderbilt.
Can I say Georgia here? No, I'm just kidding.
Jeez, Dave.
I mean, you can do whatever you want, man.
I mean, look,
this is where Dave makes his heel turn.
Exactly. Oh, you're learning now. You're learning.
Turn it into a mark. No, I'm going to say Tennessee. Tennessee is. I think they get one win in the SEC this year. Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm going to say coin flip Kentucky or Missouri. Tails Missouri.
Okay.
I'm really tempted to put Vandy here, but you know what they say, Missouri loves company. I'm going to say Missouri as well.
You can groan at that, Logan. I will give you permission to groan at that joke.
I appreciate it.
It's kind of a rule. I have to have one bad pun per show.
Okay. Okay.
So, all right. So now the 5th spot. Yeah, the 5th spot's where we're at.
See, now we're getting tricky. Kentucky? Kentucky. I'll go Kentucky.
Okay, well, I'm going to put Missouri here. Missouri. I think Kentucky can actually maybe push towards that. Yeah, do something. They showed a little bit last year. So I'm going to put Missouri here.
I hate them, so that's the problem.
No, I've got Kentucky in the 5th spot, too.
For me, I've got Vandy here in the 5th spot because I had to work them in somewhere.
I hope you're right. That'd be a good year.
They'll be real excited for that.
All right.
Number 4. Who's the 4th spot?
Now I'll go. I'll flip it again. I'll go Missouri for that one for me.
Okay. Well, this is where I put Kentucky.
All right. Oh, mine was so controversial.
I know, right?
Whoa.
All right.
Yeah, I think Pruitt gives you an instant upgrade. I've got Tennessee in the 4th spot.
Wow, you're a little bit more confident than the rest of us. In the 4th spot, I'm going to actually say the rebuild's going to take a minute in Florida. I'm going to put the Gators in the 4th spot.
Okay.
All right. Who do you guys have for the 3rd spot?
All right. Then I'm going to put Florida there because it's Florida, and I don't and as much as I would have rather put them at the very bottom of this list. I'll put Florida there.
Spoken like a true Georgia fan.
Exactly. I mean, there are very few real rivalries I feel like that exist, but that's one of them. I'll go with Florida. But I love Florida. I love Florida as a place. That's my problem. But I don't. But I've spent a little bit of time in Gainesville. Ain't nothing to see. nothing to do.
Nope.
I'm going to agree. I'm going to put Florida at number 3. Dan Mullen's a good coach, but I don't think he has enough to overtake Kirby or Will Muschamp yet. So I'm going to put Florida at number 3.
Yeah, and I'm with you, Logan. I love Florida, and both of my children technically are native Floridians, but still, nobody really likes the Florida Gators at the end of the day. I was gonna put I was between Florida and South Carolina here, and I got to be honest with you, I have not yet seen Muschamp do what I think that his teams are capable of doing. So I'm actually going to put South Carolina in the 3rd spot.
Okay.
I've got to work them in, so I'm putting Kentucky 3rd. So,
wow.
Well, I couldn't put them any higher than that, but I just think I think there's a lot of teams. There's a lot of these other teams are still kind of rebuilding, and at least Kentucky has got some sort of consistency. That's at least what I'm thinking. So maybe an ambitious year for Kentucky, finishing 3rd like they did last year.
This ain't basketball, Ben.
They're going to do a lot better than that in basketball.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
All right. We got the 2
Well, I mean,
spot.
yeah, I feel like this is now. I mean, should we say number 2 and number 1? Because I feel like it's pretty obvious for me.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go South Carolina number 2, and I wonder who takes the number 1 spot for me. But I'll go South Carolina number 2.
Yeah, I got the same as Logan. Carolina and Georgia.
Yeah, I've got Florida and Georgia. Florida 2, Georgia 1.
Yeah.
Logan, don't hate me. I'm going to put Georgia 2 and South Carolina 1. I think
I don't hate you. We've known to blow it every time that we're ranked high. It's gonna blow up in our face. So
I appreciate you making the argument for me. I didn't want to be too much of a jerk here. Having a Georgia guest, but I think South Carolina's going to play good defense, and sometimes just when you have those kind of weird games like that, you grind it out. I could see South Carolina and Georgia both dropping the same number of games in SEC play, and South Carolina having the tiebreak. So I'm going to put the Gamecocks in at number 1 in the East, and Georgia there too.
Oh, wow. All right, well, there are the picks. Hey, Ben, why don't you hit us with the first sideline warning? I won't make Logan go first.
Okay, for the sideline warning, this is one I am overdue to drop in here, and I got to work in a little bit more NBA commentary. And this one simply goes out to one Kawhi Leonard. What are you doing, dude? You could have it all in San Antonio if you wanted. You would be the king of San Antonio for as long as you wanted to be. You're gonna go somewhere else, and it's not gonna work. Like you're gonna be mixed in with a bunch of other celebrities. Yeah. You're always gonna be overshadowed. You could have been the king of San Antonio, man. And I'm just disappointed that in a team a franchise that has built itself on unselfishness, you've got to come in and bring all this selfishness into the Spurs franchise. They don't need that. They don't need you. They'll figure out a way to win without you. So Kawhi Leonard, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Yeah, don't be Dwight Howard.
No.
Wow.
Who I love.
That's 2 weeks in a row that we've had a Dwight Howard reference, y'all.
I loved him, and he broke my heart.
Hey, man.
All right, Adam, go ahead and hit it.
Yeah, this one will be pretty quick, guys. Saw the release of, I think it's the 10th anniversary of the ESPN body issue, which is really just a way for ESPN to compete with the swimsuit issue for Sports Illustrated.
It's not the same.
But Greg Norman, he's 62, Jerry Rice is 55. I don't think you're competing. You're just really trying to show naked people on a magazine at that point. So it's time for that to stop. Along with UCF and other things that I'm getting petitions together for, I'm going to put together a petition for ESPN to stop the body issue. It has gotten out of control, and it needs to end now.
Adam, is there anything worse than if a UCF player was invited to be in the body issue?
I would buy every copy just to burn it.
Hey, Charlotte Flair, bringing it back to wrestling. She's in the body issue.
Yeah, she is. And Greg Norman, who I'd say if I look like Greg Norman at any age, like he does in that body issue, then I felt accomplished because, good Lord, that was impressive. UCF though, the true national champions.
Oh, Logan with the heel turn. There goes Adam.
No,
Adam's got a steel chair. Adam's got a steel chair.
Even I, who went to college like 2 miles from UCF, will say that.
All right, Logan.
I will say this. I don't want to go through this whole story because it will take all night. But I had an experience where I learned a few things when creating your own sports whatever venture. Don't buy a professional wrestling ring on a Facebook group for $300 because, as the old adage says, if it's too good to be true. It probably is. And yeah, I got in a Facebook dispute or a PayPal dispute over that $300, and it did not go my way because I could not afford to return literally scraps of junk metal that were found on the side of the road. At what my favorite thing was at 123 Road, so like that's like professional wrestling, dream address. And it was a nightmare, and I've learned my lesson, and that's something I had to get someone I paid more money to get someone to haul off the scrap metal. And then I ended up paying a lot more to get a guy who really builds professional wrestling rings to do that. So my sideline warning, I guess, is an actual warning, which is do not buy a professional wrestling ring on a Facebook group if it seems too good to be true from a it's just, I mean, you're going to get stuck with a liar who's going to send you photos of a ring that's black, but it's blue when it shows up, and it's never mind. And then you pay someone to pick it up, and they drive your U-Haul into a sand pit that to the point where I literally threw my hands up in the air and I had to walk out for a minute. Somehow, miraculously, they were able to pull this out of the sand pit because our old office was a gym and it had a beach volleyball course, and they legit drove a U-Haul it looked like a movie. It went up in the air and then sank like 4 feet, and the tires were completely covered. And that was one of the worst. That was one of the lowest moments in my professional wrestling career in 2017.
So one day when you are the next Vince McMahon and they make a movie about Logan Seculo, that will be the opening scene?
That's the first scene is me and Will and two guys who one is a professional wrestler and both of them are professional wrestlers. They loaded the thing up into the truck and then texted me. They're like, I think this is a bad idea. I'm like, why did you put it in the truck? And I'm going to do that guy's podcast tomorrow, and we're going to have some words.
I was really hoping that the Grease was one of the guys that was the truck driver.
He even knew to stay out of that one. No. I don't blame the guys that were pulling. I actually blame Dylan, who said, pull forward. Keep going. That wasn't their fault.
Oh, wow. Well, okay. So my sideline warning is just plain and simple. This show is going to be produced and put out July 4th weekend. Guys, have a safe and happy July 4th weekend. Be patriotic. Remember why we celebrate the 4th of July. People did die to make this country free. And the reason we are able to have barbecues with our family and shoot fireworks off is because our forefathers did make the ultimate sacrifice to make this country free. So I don't care if you have political disputes. I don't care if you have an idea that you want this country to be better. You do live in the land of the free. Please enjoy it for what it is. Go America, and I'll say it, America.
And binge watch some pro wrestling this weekend.
Yeah.
If you're going to, make it Dojo Pro.
Yeah, binge watch some Dojo Pro. Hey, before we go into how you can follow Sideline Warning, Logan, tell them how they can follow you. Tell them about a couple of your podcasts.
Yeah.
And just promote yourself.
Yeah, the fun part. Right now, I'm really just promoting Dojo Pro. That's my main focus right now. I have another film, Welcome Home, Dick Van Dyke, which will be coming out hopefully by the end of the year. We've already done with it. We toured it last year. It's a documentary that will come out next year or later this year. You can find everything at my website, loganseculo.com, or follow me on Twitter at Logan Seculo, Instagram, all that. And if you tweet me hate, I probably won't respond. But if you enjoy what we do, I also do a couple podcasts off and on. So I do one about Disney World, call it WDW Today, with a group of my friends. We do another one just about the Halloween offerings at the theme parks, mainly Universal Scare Zone. And then I also do another show that Dave listens, called BLT Lunch Break, that's currently on pause because the crew behind that has been working on Dojo Pro. We hope to resume that here. There'll be a new episode by the time you hear this about the creation of the show. So you can go find all those, but just follow me and you'll find links to everything. But mainly, thank you guys for having me on, and I've had a blast. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Logan. So you can follow the show at Sideline Warning on Instagram, on Twitter at SW The Show. Actually, Instagram, we're at SW The Show as well. You can follow me at DAdams419. Follow Ben. He's at The Ben Foster. Follow Adam if he ever tweets, although he did tweet a lot last week. He's not a very competent Twitter person, but he is at RunTideRun, and he just gave me a dirty look. I'm sorry, Adam. Yeah, also, you can find the show on Facebook. We're at facebook.com/SW The Show. Join the Facebook fan group, Sideline Warning fan group. Also, please, on iTunes, you can like the show, subscribe to the show, give us a 5-star rating, tell us how great we are. And if you don't like the show, just, send us a message. Tell us what we need to fix anyway. But, that's not the place to do it. Or
leave it to your own imagination. No.
Exactly. Thank you, Logan. That's the best way to say it. But guys, we love you. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great 4th of July. And as always, roll tide. So I guess we'll come back. We'll talk about your experience there at the Georgia Dome, or not the Georgia Dome, Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Yeah, it's always Georgia Dome to me.
Yeah, always a Georgia Dome.